It's the most famous UFO event in history. The supposed crash of an alien spacecraft near Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. The specimen belongs to Dr. Roger Lear, a California podiatrist and UFO researcher.
The colors, according to the scientists at the laboratory, indicate that this may have been subjected to extremely high temperatures, maybe in millions of degrees. If you took and held one end of this piece and you just dipped the tip of it into water that was about the temperature of tea water, the end that you were holding would get so hot you couldn't hold it. You had to drop it.
The fragment was given to Lear by a close friend, Jim Fueling, who died of cancer in 2002. Fueling had taken the object as collateral for a loan to a friend. That friend had been stationed at Roswell Air Base in 1947 and claimed that he stole the fragment during the cleanup of the crash site. Fueling, a UFO enthusiast, believed the story.
This was a passion for him, the paranormal. I was interested, but not to the point of where he was. I mean, he would take something down a road and follow it like a bloodhound.
In 1997, Jim asked his brother Bob, a commercial chemist, to analyze the object.
The most interesting characteristic was the absence of any metallic element. I found no lines. Apparently it was very pure material. It certainly wasn't simply common material that you would buy in Sears or Radio Shack. It was unusual. I told him it was very unusual material. But of course that doesn't establish that it's extraterrestrial.
Nor that it came from the Roswell crash. Ever since the incident, there have been reports about pieces of evidence. Jesse Marcel Sr., an intelligence officer assigned to investigate the scene, talked to reporters for the first time in 1979 about what he found at Roswell.
There were just fragments strewn all over the area, an area about 3/4 of a mile long and several hundred feet wide. So we proceeded to pick up the parts. He says, I tried to bend this stuff. He says, it will not bend. One thing I was certain of, being familiar with all air activities, that it was not a weather balloon, nor an aircraft, nor a missile. It was something else, which we didn't know what it was.
Marcel's son, Jesse Jr., was 11 years old when his father showed him pieces of the Roswell wreckage.
He expressed some debris on the kitchen floor. And he says, you know, this is something, I think he said flying saucer. I think this is part of a flying saucer or words to that effect. And I myself was not quite sure what the word flying saucer meant, but I sure found out later. So we kind of plowed through the debris and just mounds of foil-like debris, some black plastic. I thought Bakelite debris at the time, fractured like a phonograph record.
Following orders, Jesse Sr. took the debris to a facility in Fort Worth, Texas. When he returned, his mood had changed dramatically.
He told us not to talk about this when he came back from Fort Worth. He said, yeah, this is a non-event, didn't happen, forget about it, so act like it never happened.
Jesse Marcel Jr. has examined Roger Lear's sample on 2 occasions. He finds it very similar to some of the alleged Roswell debris his father showed him in 1947.
There's a reflective surface on one side and a dull surface on the other. There were certain characteristics that were the same, you know, like the color was the same, it was fractured. There's at least 2 references there that made it resemble the Bakelite that I'd seen that night on the floor.
Dr. Lear submitted a small sample of the specimen to Dr. Russell Vernon Clark at the University of California at San Diego. He used electron spectroscopy testing, a process which would establish the elemental and molecular structure of the material. 99.9% of the substance turned out to be silicon, but the silicon in the sample contained ratios of isotopes considered out of the ordinary.
These ratios can tell you whether something is normal from this planet or maybe identify it if it comes from another spatial body, such as another planet. When the laboratory looked at the silicone, that they found that the ratios were not only non-terrestrial, not from this Earth, in nature, but they were so far out that it would be almost impossible to even put this thing together. Another laboratory that he sent it to indicated that the object was manufactured. It had a surface on it that looked like it had been machined.
The tiny percentage of the material that was not silicon also showed signs of abnormal isotopic ratios. 3 other labs received the same sample for testing.
And the results were conclusive that this piece was, number one, manufactured and contained elements that were non-terrestrial.
The test results confirmed for Jesse Marcel Jr. the instinct he'd felt for 50 years.
I've been pretty sure that this was not of human manufacture, based on my gut feeling and the fact that the material is totally different. You know, I'm an aircraft examiner, and I've seen a lot of wrecked aircraft. I've never seen anything like this before, so I'd always kind of felt that, yeah, that was something very unusual.
In 2001, Roger Lear, other UFO investigators, and those involved in the specimen testing scheduled a press conference to discuss their findings in Oakland, California. The conference was being organized by a former network news producer, and a website was set up for a live streaming video feed.
The UFO conference was all set, everything was ready to go, and suddenly I got a phone call telling me that the conference had been canceled. I asked my friend what happened, and he said, well, I really can't tell you at this time, but check out the website. So I went to the computer and put in the URL for the website, and suddenly the screen went black.
UFO investigator Jason Martell had designed and set up the conference website.
I'm freaking out because it's all gone. I'm trying to access the FTP server. I'm trying to look at the logs and see where the data is, and it's literally not there because our box, our server, was physically unplugged and moved. They said it was scheduled for service for a RAM upgrade. No reason for anyone to touch it, yet it was moved.
To add further intrigue, Roger Lear received another call from the producer who first told him about the cancellation of the conference.
Early that morning, 2 gentlemen in suits with proper identification came into his office and asked him to please accompany them. And they took him and put him in a van, drove him around the San Francisco Bay Area for 11 hours, and told him there is no UFO International press conference.
Could there have been a conspiracy to prevent new Roswell test results from being publicized? There's no way to know. But the conference never occurred. More significantly, those who have had anything to do with the specimen have, coincidentally or not, been subjected to difficult, if not tragic, circumstances.
Most people that have been involved with this specimen are dead. The original owner, dead from supposed motorcycle accident. The second owner, dead. The scientist that did a major part of the work strangely dies of 2 forms of leukemia. The television producer involved remains frightened. Based on the past history of what's happened, I'm extremely concerned about the object being in my